Brendan Haley, who is the policy director at Efficiency Canada, authored a blog post called Debunking the Alberta Energy War Room on Energy Poverty. So I'm going to talk to him about that. Welcome to the interview, Brendan.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here.
Well, let's first of all talk about what energy poverty is. Can you explain it, please?
Yeah, so energy poverty is basically a situation where households, people, whether they're renters or owners, have an unsustainable financial burden because of energy costs or inadequate energy services. So it could also be a lack of access to heating, cooling, lighting. So it's usually a result of a combination of low income and high bills, which can occur because of energy inefficiency.
Right. And the War Room piece in question, I gather, blamed energy poverty in Canada on renewable energy.
Yes, that's actually a standard tack. We actually had a student do a media analysis of how energy poverty is discussed. And sometimes it's often discussed as being blamed on renewable energy on carbon pricing. And I think really the major lesson there is that opponents of energy transition are going to use energy poverty as a concept to argue against low carbon solutions, but they actually don't provide any workable solutions themselves to actually deal with that issue. And I think it's incumbent on governments who want to make a good faith attempt to reach net zero emissions to offer real solutions. And the one that is most apparent is low income energy efficiency.
What is low income energy efficiency?
Right. So, we know that providing energy efficiency services, there's specific barriers amongst low income households that requires a more targeted or tailored approach. So actually right now, the federal government, is providing grants and is expected to provide loans for general residential households to upgrade their buildings to energy efficiency. But for someone who is quite financially constrained, they can't pay those upfront costs to make those initial investments where you might get an incentive at the end. It's also not responsible to expect those people to take on more debt. So those programs are usually offered in a turnkey way with no cost to participants because they provide very important benefits in terms of poverty reduction, health benefits, general resilience and reductions in energy poverty. So, right now the federal government does not have any type of specific program for low income in particular. And we think that's a real policy gap that still exists.
And it seems to me another benefit of that kind of a program, of course, is the difficulty that Canada is going to have reducing GHG emissions from its built infrastructure, from residential buildings and commercial buildings. So it seems like this also would address that issue.
Yeah, I mean, to reach net zero emissions, we need to reach almost all of the buildings in Canada and prepare them for net zero. And that includes buildings where low-income Canadians live. And so we have to get to those buildings, right? And often it is, those are the households or the buildings that have the highest levels of energy efficiency because they don't have the same means to upgrade as other Canadians would.
Right. And of course, the fact that the Alberta Energy War Room is trying to make an issue out of this, I mean, it's a bit ironic given the fact that Alberta has a high rate of energy poverty.
Yeah, it has a relatively high rate of energy poverty. It's also quite ironic because the current government that created the Energy War Room canceled a low-income program that was run by Energy Efficiency Alberta. What's one of the first things they did when they came into office. And that's actually one of the few programs in the country that really tackled energy poverty in a quite concerted way in terms of targeted outreach to the lowest income households with the highest bills. Also had quite innovative approaches for reaching multicultural communities. So if the Energy War Room really wanted to talk about what could be done on energy poverty, they could be advocating to the government to bring back that low income efficiency program.
What else goes into a real energy poverty strategy?
There's a number of other aspects. I mean, there's some things that are involved at the provincial level and the the federal levels. So definitely at more provincial levels, there's important roles for emergency assistance to households who, have emergencies and affording their bills, perhaps management of debts or arrears, targeted relief on bills. And then we see energy efficiency as kind of the more long-term structural change to help reduce some of those bills. So energy efficiency is definitely part of a broader mix. It's also really important work in terms of access to data and frameworks and identifying the households that are most in need.
And I gather that Europe has been doing this kind of work for quite a while and has models that we could benefit from.
Yeah, we have a whole other blog that was written, led by my colleague Abby, all about what we could learn from Europe. And so what the other ironic thing about this energy war room is that they're using Europe as an example of, high prices and lessons for energy poverty. But if you wanted to learn lessons from Europe, they've actually done a lot more on energy poverty than us. And one issue that always gets us concerned in Canada is how does the federal government enable action across provinces that are quite diverse and quite different? And in Europe, they've done that with their member states. So a complex federation like Canada can definitely tackle energy poverty and provide low-income energy efficiency, even though we have provinces that might be at different stages of development and have different needs and outreach.
Well, great. Well, thank you very much for your insights, Brendan. Always appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.